From the Joy News Center. This is News at 8.
Good evening. Welcome to the Primetime Bulletin here on Joy News. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. Coming up in tonight's bulletin, Chief of Staff stops renaming of National Hockey Pitch after the late President Mills following massive criticism of the action by the Accra mayor. The national heroine at the heart of the storm, Theodosia Oko, has meanwhile been telling Joy News how saddened she was by the name change. And President Mahama lashes out at IMF and World Bank at their unfavorable conditions that they attached to their grants and their wholesale prescriptions. Victims of last night's fire at Odorna promised assistance. In business, Chamber of Mines laments heavy taxing of mining firms in the face of declining gold prices, cautioning it could collapse the industry. We also have sports, showbiz, and international news coming up. In our very first story, the Chief of Staff, Prosper Bani, has directed the Accra Mayor to reverse the decision to rename the National Hockey Pitch after the late President John Evans Atta Mills. Information released to the Flagstaff House Press Corps indicates that the presidency was not aware of the decision to change the name from Theodosia Oko Hockey Stadium and has directed a reversal of the decision forthwith. The AMA Chief Executive has also been summoned to the Flagstaff House over the decision taken without recourse to the presidency. All right, so there has been widespread criticism and I dare say condemnation of the action by the Accra mayor, especially on social media. So George Addo Jr. joins me earlier than he usually would to tell us what's happening on social media as far as this issue is concerned, George.
Quite a lot, Gifty, I have to say, and the controversy was actually who had done more. There was a side that felt that indeed Atta Mills, or the late Atta Mills, deserved it. Others also felt that Theodosia deserved it. And they were all looking at the lines of who started it. You know very well the history of the hockey pitch was started by Theodosia. Sure. And then in the capacity as a president, Atta Mills feathered it and made it a national pitch. So you look at it clearly, but you have a feeling that not everybody was very happy with what was happening out there. They felt that the decision was too rushed a bit and something, felt something fishy, and that said, people were not too comfortable with that. And they felt that really, indeed, a lot of consultations had to go on before that happened as well.
And that's what has been happening on social media
as well. And we've been talking as well to some of the, experts in this one. We can talk about, John Obi Amwa, who served as a deputy sports minister under Rashid Bawa from 2005 to 2009. Indeed, under his tenure, we had a number of changes in names. Remember, the Babaya Stadium was changed at the point. We also had the Zuma Nelson, moved from the Kaneshi Sports Complex now to the Zuma Nelson Complex as well. We also had that happen recently. He was saying that he was in office at the time, but before they got there, a lot of consultations had gone on, trying to give us a picture that great consultations go on before you arrive at such a decision.
Which didn't seem to have happened in this particular case.
And he was making a point that he feels that Vanderbilt has not really done the right thing, because he started with Ohinijan. And if you remember, it used to be Ohinijan Stadium, and then he moved to the Accra Sports Stadium. He felt that not too many consultations went in there. We could also talk about a former president of the Ghana Football Association, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, who also felt that
What's he saying?
I mean, he says that no, this is certainly not right, and he thinks that it was too pushed. He was not very happy about it. He thinks that these things certainly didn't go on
so
well.
Point well made. People weren't happy about it. People thought that there was something fishy about it. So now the presidency has reversed it. What are the reactions that have come on the back of this one?
Obviously, there is a feeling of contentment, not only from where we're getting it, but everybody who was not happy about it is feeling that, okay, this is the right thing. But it quickly puts into sharp contrast exactly what was happening then, because if you went according to what what the president had or the office of the president has sent out, it means that they hadn't consulted the presidency. Exactly. And it's one of the areas where everybody's getting concerned about, in as much as they are happy that everything has gone well.
So now the situation is really, the case is really moving away from the hullabaloo about the hockey thing and going to consultations and how you take decisions without consulting.
And if you're monitoring that, most of them say that then it means we're probably in a situation, if this didn't happen, then we're in a situation where anybody could get up any day and want to change the name of a place. And so it's one of the issues that we're really looking at. That indeed, the lady in this, Theodosia Oko, has been speaking to us.
All right, so let's take a listen to what she's been saying.
Everybody at that time knew I'm the only one who has done it. It isn't a new thing. It's old. I don't know any hockey stadium. All I know is my hockey pitch. That's how I call it. I never knew you've named it a stadium or anything. Because I dug the ground and put everything in, and I got people to help me to build it up. But I don't talk about it because I did it for the country, so I don't mind whether they know it or don't know it. I used to play. I went to Achimota after I've taught for some time. I know that the mayor never knew anything about this thing. And so if he is now the mayor and he wants to name it after anybody, I don't have anything. I'm not a Gantu. If my name is on it, or if my name is not on it, what do I get? The only thing I get is people coming to play and I have time to go and watch them. It's your plan. So I have nothing to say to it. Don't change anything. What you've done, you've done it. But those who know and those I brought, the foreign people I brought to play here, know, they know. So it doesn't matter.
So that was Madame Theodosia, 91-year-old Madame Theodosia, who is known to be associated very well with the hockey pitch. And so we end that one. But let's move on with other stories. President John Dramani Mahama has lashed out at the IMF and the World Bank for the unfavorable conditions they attach to grants and the wholesale prescriptions that they offer as solutions to the economic woes of the countries on the continent. The president, who was speaking at this year's Forbes Afrique Forum held in Congo-Brazzaville, blamed the two institutions for misleading Africa, noting the continent is sure to make a headway if it deregulates its sectors, especially energy.
From the instability we inflicted on ourselves and other things that we did to ourselves, we were also misled, I would put it bluntly, by international financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. For many years, these two institutions had one prescription for all economic maladies: structural adjustment, remove all subsidies. And so my country was a star pupil of the IMF and the World Bank for many years. In the early 80s and probably up to recently, we have been on IMF programs. And the condition is to remove all subsidies.
The Forbes Afrique Forum is a business platform for heads of state of African countries and other top-notch business persons to discuss Africa's emerging economies and how to maximize their benefit. President Mahama noted that Africans themselves have contributed in a major way to the snail-paced development of the continent.
Agriculture was one of the prime targets of removal of subsidies. Everything was taken away, and the poor African farmer was left to compete with farmers in other parts of the world who used not only modernized agricultural techniques, but were subsidized by their governments. The result was that our economies became import dependent. What it shows is that typical capitalist concepts of economics to fix economies would not work in a continent like Africa. We were led down the wrong path. We ourselves have done damage to our countries and our continents by the instability that quickly gripped the continent after we emerged from colonialism.
He noted that the lingering subject of integration must be given the immediate urgency it requires.
Despite the protocols that we have passed, there are still hindrances to integration. Just recently we met in Abuja in ECOWAS to agree on a common external tariff. At the last minute, one of our countries raised an objection and said they were not ready yet. And after 7 years of negotiation, we still have to wait for others to get ready before we're able to introduce a common external tariff. We must give meaning to integration if we are to move our countries forward.
The summit was attended by global leaders, including former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, former Prime Minister of Belgium Guy Verhofstadt, and President of the leading opposition party in France, the UMP's Jean-Francois Copé. Kofi Annan described Africa as a continent going through momentous times, highlighting energy and infrastructure as the two biggest impediments to development.
We must work harder to enable all our citizens, particularly the young, to play their full part in Africa's future. If we have the courage and the vision to do this, and I'm confident we will, Africa's future will be bright, and bright indeed.
So a year ago today, President John Dramani Mahama's first day in office as president is what can be described as a bittersweet moment. We bring you highlight of the emergency swearing in Parliament, his inauguration and some expectations expressed at the time. On July 24th, 2012, news of the death of Professor John Evans Atta Mills hit the nation. The president had passed. The entire nation was thrown into shock and a heaviness that was almost tangible. Per constitutional requirement, John Dramani Mahama, then vice president, was sworn in to continue the remainder of the late President Mills's term. Parliament quickly reconvened with the Chief Justice to swear in the vice president, the first in Ghana.
Having assumed the high office of President of the Republic of Ghana,
Having assumed the high office of President of the Republic of Ghana,
on the basis
history was made. A visibly broken vice president became the fourth president of the Fourth Republic of Ghana, marking the beginning of the road to the presidency, and the indicators of a Mahama-led administration was gradually established.
it is with deep sorrow and a heavy heart that I address the nation through your august house tonight. I never imagined that one day I would address our nation in such difficult circumstances.
The eyes definitely have it.
There were diverse perceptions about the new president on the background of an impending election, and the change spread fast with enthusiasm. Expectations were high.
He shouldn't disappoint Ghanaians, so we are appealing to him that we want him to go by the constitution of the PNDC.
Any was school fees are bashifia. What's more quality? Moshe ane bashifia. Because when you can't me fair me here go. Any no chumo abamami. You want yemen me benu chumo na me na no chumo na me tuni ani ska abamami. Ake what mo say painting.
We are youth near Dawson. The person you might be but a mamu. Near Juma be because anyone be near Juma and on the number mamu. I will use you be brave book on the eye in your face. Say Juma, how many mean yes, you are 7 years ago.
Chiano mi jaja kami aika ni do machine nsia yoda na jomi no wa mi sumoni menene kaja meneka ya NDC party e ane do machine no piano na me ka me ba fia me ane fe ni wa chiano wa mi aka wonye NDC se she wo yin ehwe piano ni mo fia mota wo eni ne ba hye no
eni ne hye no o ba fe disappoint
da bi na eni
o ba shi party mi
shi mi kokoko eni ni yawo.
So that was a year ago. Now, the mayor of Accra has promised victims of last night's fire at the Odorna pedestrian shopping mall that the assembly will assist them to rebuild stores and containers. He also assured the traders appropriate action will be taken against culprits that will be implicated after the investigations by the fire service.
The Accra Mayor Alfred Okovan-Dapoy blamed the fire on illegal connections and cautioned traders to expose anyone who indulges in that act.
Unfortunately, we don't have a massive destruction. We have about 7 containers and 21 sheds, so that we can build back immediately, and we can do so that they can easily return. But I do not want to see the traders on the streets trying to make ends meet. I want to see them in the market, and so this we are going to do quickly, just like we did the other one, to get them back to business. Had fire in this market, this particular market before, and we have come to renovate the shed that burnt, and we gave them warning. We put a task force in here to make sure that we do not have a repeat of this, and that is why I'm very, very serious, because I know we have a task force here, and if somebody was doing an illegal connection, our task force must be able to have seen that should not happen, and that is why I want to have a thorough investigation to find out if anybody neglected their responsibilities and allowed somebody to do an illegal connection which resulted in this. You understand? So we will do the investigation, we will find out who had a hand in it and who did not do his job and allow this to happen.
Some of the traders are, however, skeptical about the promise and have threatened to embark on a naked demonstration as far as to the office of the president if the promises are not fulfilled within a week.
Because this is who prove it to be a woman. I'm a Juma. Name Fiat America. Some of one are you president who dear? Must have because I'm in the naked bed of my fear on Matana. Because the national and the national don't qua. Miss Rabine, on Shania Panacho, no be a question and topic. Meet me if it's in one of them and buy, meet me coffee. It's Miss Rabine on Shania. And yes, I'm a few. Yababa. I said, I come on my fear, and some Mawalian, I'm woman.
He also cautioned the traders against cooking in the market because it is a major contributory factor to the fire outbreaks. The Wednesday, July 24 fire destroyed 8 containers and 14 kiosks.
It is the Primetime Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV. We'll take a quick break. We'll return with some more. You're welcome back. The NEMA Motor Traffic and Transport Unit MTTU here in Accra is bent on bringing some sanity to roads under its jurisdiction with a weekly exercise to check road traffic offences. More than 15 vehicles were towed in this week's exercise, which focused on the Kanda Highway. It aims to reduce traffic congestion and road accidents.
The exercise, which started a little after midday, targeted vehicles parked wrongly. Some vehicle owners who rushed to the scene to plead were not successful. Mohammed Muniru, whose car was also towed, explained he had just parked to observe his Ramadan prayers.
I was in the mosque when I heard that the police people are towing the cars. So I haven't even finished the prayers. I haven't even finished the prayers. I just come out and just park my car. So when I was moving, the policeman just raised his hand that I should stop. Even one of the policemen even explained my what do you call it? Driving the mirror.
The action wasn't restricted to vehicles alone, but a general lawlessness on the roads, such as this block factory engaged in bricks business on the highway. The factory was shut down and their equipment seized. A signpost found on the pavement was also removed. The Divisional MTTU Commander DSP Michael Esiedu warned the exercise will be sustained.
We are going to ensure that this will be done. I told them about 3 weeks ago that I'll continue to do this exercise no matter what they might bring up. Once it will not be in violation of their rights, I'll continue to enforce the law to keep the roads free.
Well, as part of efforts to improve the lives of the people of the Ampine community, the chief of the area, Nana Nyamike Fofole II, has developed a 20-year development policy that will invest in the lives of the people, especially in the area of education. The policy will see the award of scholarships to brilliant but needy students from basic school all through to the tertiary level.
Ampane is a predominantly farming community in the Lembele district of the Western region with many challenges. Notable amongst them is education, which is blamed on the lack of financial support. The development policy, which the chief hopes to use to change the fortunes of his subjects, will be funded with proceeds from a rubber plantation to be run with community labor. It is expected that at least 3 students will be sponsored from the basic to the tertiary level. About 25 acres of the rubber plantation are already being developed in 2 separate lots, with the first set of trees nearing maturity. Nana Nyamike Fofole II, in an interview, said he sees a bright future for the community. In a related development, the chief of Ampane has condemned the behavior and indecent speech of some Ghanaians on the election petition hearing, which he said has the tendency of destroying the nation. Having had first-hand knowledge of the experiences of the Ivorian refugees from neighboring Ivory Coast, who he is hosting in his community, he pleaded with all Ghanaians to seek peace rather than war, and also to pray for God's intervention for a fair verdict from the judges sitting on the case.
In Ampane community, and we see the trauma, we see the hardship, we see the suffering that they are going through. It is hell to be a refugee, I am telling you, my fellow Ghanaians. Now people are singing war drums, people are threatening, people are prophesying that there will be, in fact, all these things that is going on, my fellow Ghanaians, we have to be careful. As I'm saying, it is very curse. It's a curse to be a refugee. Come and look at those people living at Ampane community, at Ampane refugee camp. There are lecturers, there are graduate students, there are lawyers, there are doctors, many people, great people are staying over here. They are living in tents. They are living in tents, not even a detached structure, in tents.
William Benjamin Peters reports from Ampane.
Former Deputy Speaker of Parliament Michael Quay has explained that the Right to Information Bill will have to be taken through the entire legislative process all over again. Contrary to suggestions, it can be rushed through. The bill seeks to provide for the implementation of the right to information guaranteed by the Constitution.
The House doesn't delay. We don't reject bills. We don't reject bills. It is before the Attorney General. Then it's unknown to Parliament yet, because from there it goes to Cabinet, and the Cabinet deliberates on it. Then if it's approved by Cabinet, then it comes to Parliament through the leader of government business, and then it is properly laid. That is the time it is before Parliament properly.
This is an August House, and if there's any bill before the House, at the end of the day we deliberate on, we take a decision. If majority of us believe that it should be passed, it's about numbers, and I strongly believe that as it stands now, most of us have already made up our minds that indeed this is a good bill of which we should assist it in order to be passed so that it will come into effect.
All right, now let's move away from the capital. Some residents of Takwa in the Western region, which happens to be the birthplace of former President John Evans Atta Mills, are unhappy that the area was neglected during activities to mark the first anniversary of his death. Meanwhile, the landlord of the house in which the former president was born, Joseph Kwesi Yankson, is appealing for the construction of a monument in Takwa in honor of the late president. Correspondent William Benjamin Peters has more.
Even though it is known as a hub for gold mining activities in the country, the mining town of Takwa gained more popularity following the demise of former President John Evans Atta Mills. He was born in Takwa in a house popularly known as I.K. Chineboa House on Abyssinia Hills in Zima Line, a popular suburb of Takwa. People traveled from all walks of life to visit the house. The current landlord, who happens to be the nephew of the original owner, was 9 years old when the late president was born. Joseph Kwesi Yankson recalls the birth of the late president.
During the course of their stay in 1943, 44, at Amels. I'm moving in there at Amels, no, order or ye break ala. You send the papa, you be or ye Leonard. No, papa, no, or ye Leonard. Now, on the papa, no, to me, Guinea professorship education.
He added that several efforts made to have the late Kwesi Yankson said several promises made by the reigning president, John Dramani Mahama, during his official visit to the House on August 18, 2012, to have the place renovated and the deplorable road leading to the place fixed, that promise has proved futile. He further stated that even though the house was painted, he wished a monument to be constructed or the house will be converted into a tourist attraction in memory of the late president.
Travel all the way from Canada. If you had it, one, what you could turn my hand there, Chiwama, Ukruwi, Yenny Dinuko. Two, monument to be. Butuma baby in the at Mas, the monument. You know, so over if you now was way and over a tourist attraction. None of your Timor, the monument in back home.
He expressed unhappiness over what he refers to as neglect of the place during the 1-year anniversary of the late president, as no activity was brought there.
A 22-year-old taxi driver in Obuadaka in the eastern region has been found dead in his room in what is believed to be suicide. His father believes he killed himself because of the embarrassment he has had to suffer as a hernia patient. Viewer discretion is advised.
Kwame Teddy, a taxi driver who lives with his dad, has been suffering from this complication for 8 years, according to his mother, Awuya. He subsequently dropped out of school after the hernia protruded from his belly. Relations and friends say the deceased showed no signs of abnormal behavior and didn't complain of any difficulties. His dad, Mauli Francis, who had just returned from a trip and couldn't find his son, broke into his room to find his lifeless body hanging. The Suhum police is said to be investigating.
It's been 3 weeks now since residents of Obom Kojonto were affected by a demolition exercise that rendered hundreds of them homeless. Finding shelter at night is a serious and daunting task for them. In this story, Yafoswa Jemfi takes a look at how these displaced residents find shelter at night after a school which acts as their temporary abode was locked up by school authorities.
It's about 9 p.m. and residents of Obom Kojonto are asleep. Finding accommodation here at night is both a disturbing and daunting experience. About 3 weeks ago, when residents were rendered homeless by a demolition exercise, they sought solace at the Obom Kojoman MA school to spend the night. Unfortunately, the school authorities put the place under lock and key to prevent these helpless residents from sleeping there. Curious, I wanted to know where residents now spend the night. My first point of call was the school block. Well, I didn't find anyone sleeping in the classroom. I was told the heavy downpour had dispersed affected persons in the surrounding communities. The search took me further to this wooden structure which houses cornmeal machines. I opened the door and behold, about 15 people including children were in the room. Some laid on the floor with mats while others dozed off on a bench. Some couldn't help warding off mosquitoes and insects that tried to disturb their sleep.
ya dumara we ba no blan seba dam ya wo ya jo ho tia ya le ko go bin tara pre mianchi tam ya wo blan.
Another search took me to the compound of an abandoned hut. In this compound, these small kids, spotted with their cover cloths, were dozing off as they have no place to lay their heads. Another group of about 6 school children were fortunate to be in this abandoned hut. For them, this mosquito coil at least could help them drive the mosquitoes away. Dominic seems to be the eldest among this group of persons and shares their story.
When the thing happened, we come to one of our friends here and they say, let's come and line up over here. So we are managing here. Here to mosquito day here. Morning when we wake up, you can see mosquito partner. There's a bride in our legs. So here I'm not feeling comfortable. Even so, tomorrow, yesterday morning, my dinner brother said because of mosquitoes, so he have got headache.
This family was also fortunate. A family friend had given them this room to lay their heads for the night. So for now, this is how the people of Obom Kojonto live. After several weeks of searching and hunting for food and shelter, they're still hoping and praying that authorities will find them decent places to lay their heads. Reporting from Obom, Yafosia Jimfi.
All right, now West Africa has 17 months to implement the integration agenda, which is the single currency convergence for all West African states. When we return from this break, that's what's happening in business.
Joy News Business is
So business news, the country's quest to raise $1 billion from international investors has been oversubscribed by 100%. This was after the team from Ghana, led by the finance minister, engaged institutional investors and fund managers from San Francisco, Los Angeles, London and Frankfurt, New York and Boston. The 10-year bond had $2.2 billion worth of bids from investors. Government is planning to raise $1 billion to clear maturing debts and undertake some infrastructure project outlined in the 2013 budget. The country will be paying investors a coupon rate of 8%, slightly higher than 6.5% Nigeria secured from the similar exercise. Ghana's last bond in 2007 was to raise $750 million and it had a yield of 8.5%. West Africa has 17 months to implement the integration agenda, which is the single currency convergence for all West African states. The Committee of Governors of Central Banks of the West African Monetary Zone had reaffirmed the 1st January 2015 deadline to adopt the single currency. Director General of the West African Monetary Institute, Dr. Abuako Nglama, confirmed the committee's decision, adding the date will no longer be postponed. Etonam Say has more.
The decision to implement the integration agenda has been on the committee's table for some time now, although the deadline for implementation was postponed several times. This was because member countries have been unable to meet all the 4 primary microeconomic convergence criteria. Director General of the West African Monetary Institute, Dr. Aboku Nglama, said no country satisfied all the criteria during the review period. Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Nigeria satisfied 3 criteria each out of the 4, while Sierra Leone and Guinea were in compliance with 2 each. Meeting the inflation and fiscal deficit criteria remained a challenge for most countries, he said.
3 member states, the Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia, complied with inflation criterion, while 2, Liberia and Nigeria, satisfied the fiscal deficit to GDP criterion. In addition, all the member states satisfied the central bank financing of budget deficit criterion, while 5, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, met the external reserve criterion.
Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Henry K.A. Wampa, who is now the new chairman of the committee, intimated Ghana is working assiduously to meet the 4th criteria and will definitely meet the 2015 deadline.
For over 15 years, our respective countries in ECOWAS have chosen the path of monetary cooperation. Commendable efforts are being made by member countries to achieve the requisite macroeconomic stability, despite the difficult international economic environment that we operate in. But we must also admit that there have been some enormous challenges in moving the integration agenda forward.
From the beginning, I think that we were thinking about a common currency. But we saw that for us to get a common currency, there are certain structural things that we have to put in place. After all, what is the currency used for? It's used to trade. So if your trade is not harmonized and you have one currency, it will be of no use. That is why we had to go back to the drawing board and say that let us harmonize our trade.
He added, the year 2012 was a challenging one due partly to political elections and also the downward trend in prices of our major export commodities. These together, he mentioned, exerted significant pressures on the domestic currency from the beginning of 2013. Governors from all 6 member ECOWAS countries were present at the committee meeting. Odorna say, Joy News.
Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Dr. Tony Obeng, has expressed worry over the increasing cost of mining, especially at a time where price of gold has risen in recent times. For him, while a number of workers in the mining industry face losing their jobs, if the situation persists, the introduction of additional taxes like the windfall profit tax will cripple the industry.
Government receives about 27% of internal revenue from the mining industry and about 42% in foreign exchange. The price of the country's main precious metal is, however, falling. From $1,600 per ounce in the past year, it is now trading around $1,120.
You can see the sharp drop within a year. Now this is of concern to everybody. The cost going up and then gold price coming down. What it means is that we will not expect the kind of revenues that we projected, and that will have rippling effect. Government receipts might be affected. Again, if you look at some companies, when the cost is going up and price is coming down, then they would have to really rethink the overall operations. For some of them have decided to actually reduce the size of their pit. We call it, they have re-optimized. And as a consequence, it's even affecting the number of people they're employing, which is very worrying.
In spite of this, there are proposals by government to charge mining companies a 10% windfall profit tax and a uniform regime of capital allowance of 20% for 5 years. Already, the corporate tax regime of the sector has been raised from 25 to 35%. Dr. Tony Obeng fears the implementation of a windfall tax could cripple the mining industry.
Much as it sounds very interesting, that if you are making so much profit, then you pay so much extra taxes. The calculations and the rationale is not as simple and not that beneficial. What it tells people outside, those who want to bring their money in, investors who want to bring their money in, is that in this country, when you work and make more profit, there's more. They come for tax, special tax, and it is not good for an investment in a risky area such as mining.
Charging the windfall profit tax remains a prerogative of government, but the Ghana Chamber of Mines believes industry and the state in the long run will be better off without it. Abigail Adomakwenchi for Joy News.
Sports is brought.
Time for the very latest in the world of sports. Now, Chelsea ended their tour of the Far East with a 100% record after demolishing Indonesian All-Stars 8-1 in Jakarta. 2 goals each from Ramirez, Romelu Lukaku, coupled with goals from Eden Hazard, Demba Ba, John Terry and Bertrand Traore ensured Jose Mourinho was left celebrating an impressive, ruthless performance.
Post came.
Right, so great season and prospect for Chelsea over there. Let's do some international athletics. And Usain Bolt says he was shocked to hear the latest drugs scandal that engulfed athletics, but assures fans he's clean and going nowhere. The world's fastest man was speaking ahead of this weekend's London Anniversary Games. That'll be all for sports. My name is George Adid Jr. Have a good night.
Was brought to you in association with